You ready? What's wrong?
Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. This your first time listening? Welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. This podcast comes from two lifelong fans of IndyCar and motorsports. We are not insiders. Before we get started, let me introduce you to my co-host and new minority owner at Arrow McLaren, Tim Reiner. Hey, Timmy.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. You're now making me part owner of Arrow McLaren?
All that new cash investment that they took in over the Indy 500 weekend, I figure you ought to have, like, it should be Arrow McLaren SPR at this point, right?
I'll take part ownership for buying some of their merch, but it really wasn't for me, right? Well, a lot of their merch. The kids were very excited about Arrow McLaren, and they didn't need just one item. They needed about 4 a piece, and that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, we look like Arrow McLaren pit crew, or I don't know what you want to call it, like the kid version of the pit crew. But yeah, we got a lot of good stuff, and some of that stuff went to school today. So that's awesome. Kids got to show off their new gear. So they're super stoked about it. And we got the mini Matchbox car of Pato too. That was signed.
So that's really cool. And a signed hat from Pato.
And a signed hat, yes.
That was Pato's gear, though, right? So that didn't go directly into the coffers of McLaren. So
I'm sure they get a percentage of it. But we did buy stuff at the Arrow McLaren tent too, or whatever you want to call it. We'll call it a tent.
Trailer.
Show.
Trailer. Do we have any idea how your kids became such big Arrow McLaren fans? Or is it just that the gear is that cool? Because the gear is that cool.
The gear, I think it has to do a little bit with the gear, but my oldest is a big F1 fan, and he's a big McLaren fan, so that just kind of carried over to IndyCar and the Arrow McLaren. So that's where it started. He's a big Lando, and so so there he just said, all right, so I'll get this stuff, and he really likes Pato. It's a big Pato festival at our house for that driver. I guess he just resonates with the younger kids, and my kids dig him. And I think my youngest, he just went along with it and said, hey, that's a cool sweatshirt, which was not, we finally checked the receipt, and it was not a sweatshirt.
Never check the receipts. Don't give me the total and don't give me the receipt. I'm good. I got it.
Yeah. I just handed the card over, I think about 6 times, because we bought stuff at different intervals throughout the morning, if you will. And but they were all happy, and I was like, you know what, you can get whatever you want. I don't care. We'll just, we'll just give them the card and go from there. And they look good in the stands, didn't they? With all their stuff.
They look great. They look great. You were handing out that card so many times, I think I bought Dippin' Dots on you myself.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, Dippin' Dots, and I don't know, what was it, a freezy at the end of the thing? It was
whatever.
Strawberry shake. I don't know. It just kept going on and on.
Yep. I don't know. But it was a great weekend, wasn't it?
It was awesome.
We had a great time.
Back home in Indiana, if you want to say that.
Yeah. My bride and I very much enjoyed spending time with you and your family, as always. And Bill and Jill from Shelby, of course. We had a good time. That's fun.
Bill and Jill from Shelby. It was good.
Can't wait to do it again.
Me neither. Sign it up. I know
got a whole year to
different
save.
Areas to stay and trying to figure that out. But it was good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So we're a day late in our normal schedule, but it's because we were all making our way back to Metro Detroit from being in the Indianapolis area. We got, I don't know about you, but I had opportunity to spend some time with family and friends Memorial Day yesterday afternoon after we came back. Did have some things to catch up on. My grass looked like, a South American jungle, and, I had to clean the trailer because the camper was parked under a tree for 4 days. So had to get that stuff all taken care of before I could go park it. But we had a great afternoon, great drive yesterday home, and then a great afternoon with family. So I hope everybody had an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I hope everybody did too. And I hope everybody made it home safely from the event. We had a smooth ride as well, and got out of there fairly early and got home, and we got to spend some time with some family and friends. So that was good to do that and sort of wind down the Memorial Day weekend, and then get ready for today and get ready for, the normal job too. So all that good stuff.
I'm off this week, so I don't have anything to get ready for. Hey, Before we get into the team by team, I want to make a few comments. Roger Penske is a national treasure, as far as I'm concerned. Personally, I loved his intro prior to giving the command to start engines.
Yeah, I suppose you're right on that, at least for race fans, right? He's a national treasure. But if you kind of look at it for normal folks, even those that are moving to a new home or in need of and are in need of a moving truck, or those needing a new car, because he owns how many dealerships?
More than the number. Most know.
Yeah. And then companies that need heavy duty trucks for moving freight. So I guess the answer is yes, Dan. I'll agree with you that he's a national treasure to all, not just race fans.
He's a billionaire. He did not grow up with money. He's a philanthropist. He participates in politics in the right way. He's not afraid to put his money where his mouth is, and he's not afraid to invest in his passions. I don't care about all the rest. That's all I care about. Is he's a man of integrity, and he's a good man.
Yeah, and I thought his kickoff to have drivers to their, well, not drivers to the car, but drivers to start their engines, I thought he did really well. He addressed the crowd, he addressed the series a little bit, and then he gave the command, and it was all good. And I think it was really the first time he's been able to do that since he's owned the series, because the first couple years, no fans. Last year was half full, and this year was packed.
Full house.
Full house. Yeah. They were
aces over kings. You couldn't get any fuller than that.
Yeah, it was really good. So national treasure.
Yep. So with that, obviously that full house helps out a little bit. Did you see the purse for this year? The total purse for this year?
Not until you sent it to me.
$16 million, largest in the history of the 500. Certainly better, because in the last 2 years, as you noted, with COVID, it was not record payouts. In fact, they had probably taken a decades long step back in the payouts there. But Roger was sharing what he could share with the teams and put on the show appropriately. But big payout. $3.1 million to Marcus Ericsson, $1 million to Pato O'Ward for finishing second. So good for him.
And Dixon was way up the chart with 700,000.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what that means. Where did he finish?
Dixon? Yeah. 21st.
There you go. So yeah, good for him.
But he had over 700,000. I had to go with winning the poll and everything else. So the purse is kind of all over the place. But it was good to see that there was that much. And the funny thing is I'm looking at the box score. So I would have seen it on my own, because it's actually posted on the box score, which no other event do you ever see the purses on the box score. So it's a different format and everything. It's actually right in front of me. So
I know it doesn't print very well.
But you sent it to me last night, and that's where I saw it first.
Yeah. As you mentioned, the crowd was amazing. You and I were there last year during the reduced attendance, which was, I think, about 165,000 people. This year was twice that number, and it was easy to see. You could see it everywhere.
It was easy to see. But I remember last year looking at it and going, there's a lot of people here. I don't think it's half full, but then you get there. Yeah. Then 2022 comes around, and it's, packed to the gills, and you could totally tell. Concession lines, merch stores, which we spent a lot of time in the merch stores, as you heard earlier. Even the grassy hills were full of people, and the stands. So all the way around. But I did hear a lot of people, talking about traffic jams and things of that sort, trying to get out of there. For UI, and we had no issues at all. And I'm going to put that on the navigator, which is you, for getting us in there and out of there. So I'm starting to think we have a secret place to park. So I would say to any of our listeners, if you want to know where that is, just IM us on Twitter, or send us an email, and we'll give it away to those listeners that, want to know more of where we park. Because we were 35 minutes away from the track to get to the track based on where we stayed and camped and things of that sort. And it took us, when we left the track and got to the car, I think it took us 35 minutes to get back to the campground.
Yeah, so, no delay at all. I mean, we buzzed right out. It was no problems at all. I would suspect that most people that had trouble getting out of there were people that were parked in the infield or in those official IMS lots around the track, where, it was, that's definitely going to be a bumper to bumper type of situation. We were parked, a good, not quite a mile away, but we were parked away from it, and we had easy access to get away from it before we started making our way back east, which is where we needed to go. So
yeah. It wasn't bad at all.
Yeah. We were sitting between turns 1 and 2, but a little more toward turn 2. So we got to see a lot of the wrecks. Veekay, Ilott, and Johnson, which we'll talk a little bit more about. McLaughlin wrecked on the other side, turn 3, finished near turn 4. I think what's notable to me here with these is I don't remember ever hearing this boom from the cars when they've hit the wall like that. And I remember it very distinctly with Ilott, and I remember it very distinctly with Jimmie Johnson, which were big hits. But man, I don't remember hearing a boom like that. Do you?
No, I don't. I think I heard the crowd go like inhale first, like give the big
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you heard boom. And I didn't see any of those wrecks live. And I don't know how that happened. I must have been looking at turn 1 the whole time.
Yeah.
Did you see any of them from where we were sitting, even though they were pretty much not right in front of us, but to the right of where we were sitting? And maybe it's because I didn't see them because I was watching them come into one. And so I was watching before they passed me and not as they passed me. So
yeah.
How about you?
I saw Ilott and Johnson for sure. I did not see Grosjean, and I didn't see Sage Karam at the end. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So
I saw like the aftermath.
Yeah. So not specific to anybody's wreck necessarily, but one of the things I was thinking, and they did talk about it a little bit in the broadcast, was we were sitting in one of the higher grandstands there, and there was a little lower grandstand next to us, and they had the flags along the top. Mm-hmm. You could see those flags were pretty stiff most of the day blowing into that turn. So do you think that maybe it was the wind that was catching a lot of those guys off guard?
I would think so.
In that second turn?
It was blowing out of the south. We were in the south, and so it was blowing south to north, maybe a little westerly as it normally does. But so I would think if the wind's blowing that direction, you got a good gust from behind you, right? Almost directly behind you, you're going to take a little bit of the downforce off that back wing, and then that car is going to snap around. And I did hear one of the drivers say that's what it did. It just snapped. Like it wasn't any warning or anything like that. It just moved, and it could have been the wind that was taking a little bit of the downforce off the rear wing.
Yeah. The turn 4 Flower. I agree. I think it was wind. I think it was 100% wind.
Yeah.
Not Jimmy's, but I think it was 100% wind. The turn 4 exit Flowers are back. Did you see that when you watched? That's back from like when you and I used to watch when we were kids.
I saw a picture on Twitter that the Flowers were back, and I saw a picture or a post on Twitter prior to the event asking if they were going to be back, and they were there, which was
so
good.
Awesome. Yes.
Have they had a few years without Flowers? I'm assuming maybe they just had advertisements right inside the safer barrier.
Maybe
so they put the Flowers back.
Yeah, Flowers are great.
To be honest, I've not watched the broadcast. Can you believe it? Did you watch the broadcast?
Of course.
All right.
I do a show. I do a podcast.
I just haven't yet. That's. I didn't.
You were there though, Tim. You were there.
I was there. I was.
You were there.
I'll take a look at it, but I'll watch it at some point. And when I watch it and there's something else to say about it, I'll bring it up on the show. Because why? Because it's my show. I can do what I want.
That's right. The red flag at the end, was that the right call?
For me, no. It was not the right car.
So you wanted to finish the race under yellow?
It did anyways.
Not really.
Well,
they raced it.
I get it.
The end. Yeah. So the race was happening ahead of Sage Karam wrecking.
Just let me. So for me, no. Like it should have just finished under yellow. But for the other 300,000 fans that were there and those watching on TV, and yes, it was the right call. For all those folks, it was the absolute right call. It was the biggest crowd I've ever seen in years at the physical track. And then the series has had the highest viewership in 19 years. So you don't want to alienate any of those people with parading around for 6 laps. But I'm at the end of the day, I'm glad Marcus held on because it was his race when it went to red flag.
Yeah.
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 And I can't believe that
the red flag was
your teammate is the one that brings out the yellow when you're 6 laps from the end. So
I know. Well,
that's tough. As a teammate, you never want to be that person. Right. Yeah. And so to have that happen and then feel like, oh, I gave up my race, but I potentially gave up the race for the team, right? Like we could potentially lose this now, because if you looked at that at the time, he had 3-4 seconds in front of the Arrow McLarens, and they were not going to catch him.
Right.
What about you on this?
I'm all in on it. Thought it was the best thing to do. That was the right move. Green flag, or what did you call it? Green, white checker.
It was a green, white checker. It was the IndyCar version.
I don't agree with the NASCAR philosophy of green, white checker, take 2, or green, white checker, take 3. I don't agree with that. Right.
Yeah.
But I agree.
Which there would have been a take 2.
Yeah. If it were NASCAR. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so yeah, it was a green, white checkered, which was good. It was exciting. I think coming down there, if it didn't happen, we knew what the result was going to be, because I don't think anybody was going to catch Marcus.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Starting with team by team, Ganassi Racing. Tim, if I asked you to pick the winner among the drivers who led 95 laps, 47 laps, or 13 laps, who would you pick?
I would pick the obvious choice, Dan, as you know, because I'm Captain Obvious. I would have picked the 95 laps. Which, that's who I would have picked to win that race. Yeah, but
that's a ton, and we'll get there in a second.
Wasn't meant to be.
Nope. So congratulations to Marcus Ericsson, second Swedish driver to win the Indianapolis 500. The first was, of course, who, Tim?
Kenny Brock.
That's right.
Brock.
Yeah. Yep. Marcus was never out of the top 10, maybe in some of those pit stop cycles, but that's not on competition or on merit necessarily. He was getting great mileage following Dixon and Pillow and Award early and Rinus Veekay early. But at the end of the day, Chip Ganassi Racing had 5 cars in this race that were really, pick 'em winners, right? Amongst any of the guys that were out there. These cars were fast. That's not taking anything away from Marcus. Certainly not. He kept it together over 200 laps and 500 miles. And that's something to say, given that, his very experienced teammate did not. There's no other way to say that. And I'm not hating. I'm just saying. Okay. Pillow's team, got bit a little bit by a yellow flag. And, is that just bad luck? Probably. But, at the end of the day, Marcus kept it together and did exactly what he needed to do on that restart. He held the inside, which was the line to be, and Award, smartly did not try to press the issue and do a Takuma Sato around the outside. He did, he was smart, tucked back in, but those cars were so fast. He wasn't going to take that away. So, he's kind of the red flag winner too, right? Didn't he? I don't remember a red flag in Nashville. It wouldn't surprise me given everything that happened in Nashville, but Detroit was a red flag last year and he won that one. So he's kind of the red flag winner. So
I guess, I searched the box scores to see about Nashville as well as the other races. I haven't seen any notation in the box score, which kind of surprised me. So I didn't see that. So that's just me. Detroit was for sure a red flag, right, as you mentioned, right? Because that's when Will's car wouldn't restart. Right?
That's right.
Marcus got the win. So you have that. But just on Marcus in general, in the hunt all day, and showed the Ganassi strength after Dixon's pit stop incident by passing Felix and Pato on track, which was pretty amazing. And this was not passing because of traffic. This was just raw speed and raw handling. And he had the biggest lead of the day going after he passed those 2. He had those 3 seconds, 4 seconds, whatever it was, before the yellow came out and then the red. But did you hear at all with regard to his dinner with Dario Franchitti about what he should be doing and what he should be thinking about and thinking ahead and all that stuff about, if you're in this position, what should you do? Almost to me, it sounds like a Rick Mears sort of, talk, like, if you're in this situation, this is what you should do. Don't worry about the present, but worry about what could happen in the future. And it had to do, from what I got out of reading it, it had to do with, breaking the draft as soon as possible, keeping to the inside, as you mentioned, and just visualizing that. So he had the 10 minutes of the red flag to visualize, okay, Dario spoke to me about this. I saw a race before where this happened, where you're breaking the draft. And just making sure you're staying to the inside so you don't get past. And he did that for the last 2.5 laps or half a lap, lap and a half, whatever it was. But I saw the weaving. Does the weaving bother you at all, Dan? Is there anything that, no? Because it was a lot of,
it's a little breathtaking, right? Yeah. When you see him come diving down, you got that pit wall there and it looks like they're, driving right at it. And then they're going to, weave out to kind of go from there to kind of continue to break that draft, serpentine down the straights like that. But it is a little alarming.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with it. It's the rules of engagement at this point, right?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, congrats to Ericsson. I don't know if I would have picked him out of the 5 Ganassi.
I don't think anybody would have.
To be the winner. He might have been 3rd or 4th on the list, maybe 3rd.
Yeah.
But great effort and great work. And I know he's doing all the media stuff now, which is amazing. And I saw a post where he's still wearing the same suit that has all the milk on it. It smells nasty now, but
how it is we can't get this man a fresh suit is beyond my understanding. This is multi-million-dollar top tier motorsports, right? We can't get him a fresh suit after we do all the victory celebration thing up on that platform. So
I don't know. And then he got to ring the NASDAQ bell this morning, is my understanding, in New York. So he's got that whirlwind of media stuff going on, and then he'll be in Detroit.
He'll be tired in Detroit. Tony Kanaan, 3rd place. Tony led a total of 2 laps, but wasn't within striking distance much of the race. I mean, he was in the hunt. He was there. He was never gone, right? Like, it wasn't making his way through the field. He did really well there. Had a good race. You don't think that was what it was, right? Like, I think you expected a little bit more out of Tony.
Yeah, I think he was in the hunt to get the win. Well, I think about it. He was in the maybe not. You might be right on that, Dan. I'm thinking about it though, thinking that I think he was laying back. And if I think about what Ericsson did, Ericsson sort of was there all day in the top 5 pretty much all day, and kind of let his teammate ride the front. And then all of a sudden, it's one of those situations where Dixon is no longer a contender for the lead, and he just turned up the wick and went about it. So as it sort of compares to Tony, I think Tony kind of had the same. He was sitting there riding for a long time. He was slowly moving up, but riding along. And at the end of the day, if it was another 10 laps, I think he would have been there for sure and been able to pass to get to second and get up to Ericsson. So I think he was there. I think it was just a little late to the game. That's all.
Probably the only guy, right? If there would have been like 5 or 6 more laps, probably would have been the only guy that could have.
He was the only other Ganassi guy up there because the others had run into trouble. So he was, I think, the only other guy that could have won that race based on what I saw Marcus do to the Chevy powered McLarens, McLarens at that race.
9th place, Alex Palou. Alex got bit. We talked about it in the intro. Alex got bit by an ill-timed yellow from Ilott's yellow flag when Ilott crashed. He was on his way into the pits, but had to drive through because pits were closed. Then he had to come around for emergency services because he was going to run out of fuel. And then, of course, he gets a penalty for that. So drive through penalty, right? Whether you call it a penalty or not, it's a drive through. Then he has to come back in, stop just for fuel, just enough, get back out on track. And then when pits are open, he comes around, he has to pit again, right? Yeah. Drop.
Yeah, because you had the emergency fueling, right? They had to put him to the back of the field to start.
Right. With all that said, he finished 9th. And I think that was a terrific finish for the defending series champ, because when I started doing the notes and then I was watching the race, like I mentioned, my comparison here is, well, Dixon had his issue and had to serve a penalty and he finished 21st. He never came back through the field. Dixon didn't have as much time as Palou did to make his way back through the field.
Yeah, so, for sure.
Yeah, in defense.
Yeah. But, looking at Palou and what his situation was makes me think of what I was anticipating going into the race. And what I was anticipating was watching a driver or several drivers come through the field quite distinctly, right? You could watch them pick off car after car after car. And I didn't see that happen. And I don't know if you, from your perspective, Dan, if you saw that happening with a car coming through the field over and over, but I didn't see that.
No, I don't remember seeing a lot of that. Obviously it happened because we have a lot of guys who finished much better than they started, a la Alexander Rossi, a la, the Shank guys. So, but did I see a lot of that? No, but that's kind of that's kind of the difference between watching it on TV and watching it live when you're at a 2-mile racetrack, because you're not going to see a lot of that stuff happen.
Because you're saying you think it happened and you look at the results and it sort of did happen, but it just didn't seem as like it has in the past. And this takes me back to, and I'm going to apologize because this takes me back to the days of the different chassis. You had Lolo Renards, Eagles, the Penskes out there. And so you could see when someone got the setup right, maybe, early in the race, and then, or their fuel load, when the fuel load burned, they then moved up or something. I didn't witness that. And, or as the changing conditions throughout the day, which they were kind of the same throughout the whole day. I was expecting some of that cloud cover to really shade the track, but it didn't. But as you work on that setup all of a sudden someone's like looks lightning fast and they come through the field and you're like, wow, that was pretty amazing by that team. So I was anticipating that based on, we had fast cars, in my opinion, that qualified back in the field. And I expected them to sort of race to the front early and then have the race sort of unfold from there. But but
so we're not there, but you said something that makes me feel like I have a jumping off point here. So what I feel like in this current state of IndyCar racing, where the cars are essentially equal, right? This is a package that's been around a long time. It's a antique IndyCar. So one of the things that I'm always surprised at is when your car is bad, your car is bad. Like, it's not like what you were just saying, right? You continue to wrench on it. You continue to tweak and make adjustments here and there, and you start finding your way through the field. Rick Mears did that, made an entire career and a huge legacy on that. He was in a Penske, right? But in the two examples I'll give you here, and I don't want to get too derailed, right? Because we're still on Ganassi and we just, but where I want to say this is power, right? Power picked up a few spots in the beginning of that race and then dropped like a lead balloon, right?
It never came back. You thought they would have worked on that car and brought it back. Never.
Colton Herta's car was so bad. He couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Right. Marco Andretti's car, bad, couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, totally. Right? And so, you would expect Team Penske to, more than others, you'd expect Team Penske to work on those cars throughout the race, and they would keep moving up. And all of a sudden, midway, the car's really good.
Yeah.
Unless we've been duped for all these years and they've been just sandbagging and just sitting back there riding along. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, we know we have the car. Let's turn the fuel mixture to full on and let's race now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always assumed it was a little bit of both, that you were always working on the chassis, working on the car. And I don't know, to your point, with having the same chassis across all these cars, maybe it's not workable. It's either on or it's either off.
Yeah. That's surprising to me. It's a good point that you brought up. We'll have to pursue that at some point. Scott Dixon, 21st. Man, I don't think you could feel worse for a guy. And, I tweeted on this thing too, was like, you almost feel like you'd have to walk to Detroit from Indianapolis just to try to shake this off. Like, leave me alone. I'm good. I got it. I'll see you in Detroit. 95 laps, right?
He led 95 laps, total domination in my opinion.
New lap leader, right?
All time, right?
Dominated. Yep. Dominated this. And I'm struggling with the month of May thing. He dominated Indy 500 activities, right? And
2 weeks of the month.
I mean, dude, but here's the thing. It was on him.
It's totally on him. I couldn't believe it, Dan. I could not believe it. I was gasping for air in the stands when that happened. And I think we all were. And we saw it, right? We saw it live because he was the leader and he was coming in his last pit. And
you were sitting behind me. You grabbed me with purpose when you and I were both watching. Right?
I don't remember doing
Dixon, come into that pit and we saw him slide a little sideways, and you and I both knew it. He was too fast coming in.
He was caught. It's like you're going down the expressway and you're going to the Indy 500, you're doing 88 miles an hour, and all of a sudden you come around the corner and there's a cop and you're like,
23 laps from the promised land, and he has to serve a penalty.
The drive-through.
This is the hardest question I think I'll ever ask you in this pod that we've done so far. Has the 6-time champ lost his edge? He's 41 years old. And in most top tier sports, regardless of what it is, 41 is old.
It is old. And I'll say
we're older than that. So we're not picking,
right?
I
know we're not race car drivers, so we're still young in what we do. But and what he does, he's over the age. I don't know, there's no age limit, but he's beyond the point of peaking in a racing career.
Do you think he's lost his edge?
Maybe slightly.
Okay.
Slightly.
Yeah.
His qualifying this whole year has not been good.
Nope.
And that comes down to same car, same engines, basically, right?
Same team
with your teammates.
Yep.
And he's been out qualified. He's been, he's very good in the race and moves his way up. And he had mentioned that qualifying had been a huge issue. So I was super happy when he qualified first, right? They got those woes out of the way, at least for the 500. Beat his younger teammate, right? But Pato was right on his tail on that one. But yeah, I think it comes down to, it's an age game, right? So you've got to be a young person in this sport. Your reaction time is going to be different. I think we saw it a little bit with Jimmie turning into turn 2 and putting the tire too low when he got aggressive. It was just a miscue, in my opinion. And judging where the pit lane is, I know you've been there plenty of times.
Jimmy's our age. So
I know
he's even older than Scott. Yeah.
And he's a rookie, by the way. So,
the year, ahoy.
Yeah, I know. That's to be talked about on this podcast a little bit. So, I can't imagine being him. You threw, it was your race. You threw it away. You had the speed. It was shown by Marcus at the end that they had more in reserve, that they were just riding it out to the end. And he knows that I've not. Have you seen an interview with him?
I haven't. So the IndyCar broadcast went off. They went to golf, and then they were doing on Peacock the post race. And I did not look to see if the post race was available for replay. I just I didn't see anything there. I've seen a lot of pictures of Scott Dixon post race, and I don't think you need to ask the man the question to know how he feels, because it's written all over him.
Yeah,
it's written all over him.
I know it was his race, and it just came down to split second on the brakes too early or too late. And I can only, from my personal experience and doing some of the performance driving stuff, your BMW stuff reminds me of that. Is that you're wearing if you're watching it on YouTube. But if you miss a braking point by just a little bit, you're out of the box, which I was out of the box a few times, which I lost a race, all in fun. But this is the biggest race in the world. And it comes down to the last pit stop and you just overcook it.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just, I don't think nothing was wrong with the car. I think it's just got on the brakes a little too late.
Over aggressive.
Yeah.
Trying to maximize that in lap, right?
I think
trying to maximize that in lap.
Yeah. For, I don't know, the last, until the accident with Jimmie, I think that's all I was thinking about. With
seconds were going to count if he was racing one of his teammates, right? A second and a half in the pits was going to matter if he was racing one of his teammates, because Arrow was fast, ECR was fast, but they were not.
Marcus drive through him.
They were not,
because he was in third. He drove around both of those guys. It was like, oh, Dixon's out, your turn to win this thing. And he's like, okay, we'll turn it up and go through. And and like I mentioned earlier, it wasn't traffic. It was just raw speed and handling. Marcus didn't have to lift, is what I, sort of read through a few different channels. And so if you're not lifting and it's that hot, it was super hot, 82, 85 degrees, super greasy. The sun was, blazing on that. And then you have the wind on top of it. To get out of turn 2, which is, if you can stay on it through turn 2, where 4 or 5 folks had issues in getting in the wall, that's where you're going to make your pass going down the back straight. And we saw one on the front straight as well.
Right.
So that handling out of 2 and then speed coming into the wind down the front stretch.
Right. 20th place, Jimmie Johnson. I was a little puzzled by this to begin with. He had just pitted like a couple, maybe 3 laps prior, right? Lost it in turn 2, got to watch it on the broadcast. He got too low below the white line, hit the gravel, and game over for him. Probably what happened there was his car was fresh, right? Everything was reset, and he probably got caught out by how positive the front end was going into turn 2, right?
Yeah,
tires were up to temp, tires were brand new, and just a little too positive going into.
And you can't unload the car and turn right. You can't. You're committed at that point. So the car's loaded.
Yep.
And you miss the apex. You go onto that the curb, if you will, and you're done. That's it.
Yeah,
it's over.
And then it was boom. It was the second boom we had, right? It was
really loud.
So Jimmie was named Indy 500 Rookie of the Year. Is that the right call, Tim?
No, not at all. Nope. That's what I wrote. Nope.
No,
not at all.
I totally agree. I have a hard time with it. I don't have the word salad nonsense that IndyCar put out about, the criteria for IndyCar Rookie of the or Indy 500 Rookie of the Year. I think it's baloney. It should have been
I actually
David Malukas. Oh, you do? Okay, go ahead.
I actually have it. It's based on several factors. And those factors would include practice, the race, qualifying, and all that. But the ones that are, in my opinion, just judgment, right, is media and fan interaction. That's a criteria. Sportsmanship, that's a criteria.
Okay.
But also the driver that has the most positive influence on the Indy 500. Right. That was the other one.
Yep.
So I would say that is the one specifically that put him over the top. So
I'd buy it if that's really the criteria, but in any other year it would have been David Malukas because he was the highest, finishing.
It would have, if Jimmie wasn't there, it would have been for sure.
And if that guy wasn't Jimmie Johnson.
Yeah. So that was, I was shocked when
Kimi Räikkönen comes to the Indy 500 and finishes 21st and mumbles his way through 2 weeks of Indy 500 practice and qualifying and the race and stuff. And, Stingray Robb comes up and finishes 11th. They're going to name Kimi Indy 500 Rookie of the Year because he's Kimi Räikkönen.
The most positive influence. That's, I swear that's what did it. It had to have. People came to watch Jimmie.
I agree.
How many people came to watch Malukas?
I agree with you there. I disagree with the call. Vehemently.
Yeah.
I think the whole idea that they had to put out this explanation makes it very obvious that it's a big double-decker bologna sandwich that they're trying to feed us. So moving on, it looked like somebody, did you notice? Oh, you didn't watch the broadcast. So it looked like somebody gave Chip Ganassi a Huski chocolate hat on the victory elevator. Screen. Oh, you did? So on the elevators, he's getting ready to go up. Somebody was giving Chip, but it wasn't somebody was handing Chip a hat, like some PR person. Some dude took off his hat and gave it to Chip. And Chip readjusted the hat and then put it on so he could have a Huski chocolate chip hat, a Huski chocolate hat, while he was on the elevator.
Yeah, well, you got to support the winning team and the
and the guy and the company that writes the checks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and the guy who handed him the hat should get a raise too for saying, "Hey, Chip, you need this."
It's smart.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Hey, boss, here's a hat. Put this on.
Here's a hat. It's the red one. Wear the red one up there because that's the one driver that won.
Yep.
And I'm sure Chip was ecstatic, right? It's been since 2012 since they've been to Victory Lane.
10 years. Yeah. Yep.
Long time. I would have said it had to be in the last 5 years, but no, not at all. The stats don't lie. Yeah.
So congratulations to Chip Ganassi Racing, Marcus Ericsson, Huski Chocolate.
It's no surprise Chip was on the podium.
Yeah. None.
We'll just say Chip.
It was going to be one of them.
We just weren't sure which driver it was going to be.
Yep. Chip was going to be there. Just we didn't know which hat he was going to be wearing. Right.
Yeah. And we know which hat. And we might have to get us some of those.
Yeah. Yeah. The Huski.
It's funny because
chocolate.
We talked about merch earlier, right? I didn't see a lot of Huski Chocolate merch.
I didn't see anything Marcus Ericsson merch at all, which makes it makes no sense to me that you wouldn't have, one of those jerseys. It's red, right? It says Huski Chocolate on the front of it. It's got like that mountain outline or something like that's on the truck. Why wouldn't you buy that? Why wouldn't you put that out there? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right. They got the PNC Bank one. They got the NTT data one for Pelot. It doesn't make any sense that you don't have, it's Ericsson's Huski Chocolate.
Yeah. I didn't see any of them. Like
you'll have it next year.
Very few, but I really didn't see any.
Yep.
But as you said, there'll be ones around next year for sure.
Yep.
Hopefully this Swede does not get lost in the shuffle, and he's talked about for many years to become as an Indy 500 winner. I know
he's got another win in him this year, I think.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned the other Swede is sort of a forgotten Indy 500 winner.
Yeah, Kenny Brack. So when we did our live show, right? We talked to Chef Brian.
Yeah. So hopefully that's not the case, but I just want to
such a nice guy
to that team as well. Yeah, super nice guy, and spent 4 or 5 years in F1. I think it was 5 in F1 and in F1 teams that were in the back of the grid, and wasn't able to show what he really had, and has come over here and was quiet, super quiet.
Yeah,
won a few races,
but also
the red flag. Maybe it's part of the car. I don't know.
One of the guys that came from Europe that didn't ease into oval racing. He did it right off the bat. He knew that if he was coming to IndyCar, he was going to do ovals because that's part of the DNA of IndyCar. So he wasn't like a Grosjean. He wasn't like a Max Chilton. He wasn't, even like Jimmie Johnson, where it was, well, I'm going to do the road course. I'm not going to do any of the ovals. He came here and did everything right off the bat.
Totally did.
So, so good for him, for
uprooting himself and came over here and took a chance. And
he choked up on,
came with him, right? He brought a sponsor over. So that helped him get the ride that he got. And at the end of the day, it's paid off. And, you think he's got a few more wins this year under his belt?
I think he's got at least one more win in this year under his belt for sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
Arrow McLaren, Tim's team. Second place Pato Award, $1 million. I really thought they were going to have, there was a point there where I was thinking, because I didn't tell you who won Monaco, you didn't want to know. I was thinking there was going to be 2 Mexican drivers taking top honors this weekend. It was possible, right? How probable, don't know, but it was possible because he was strong. Pato Award was strong. He was strong all day.
He was strong. He was on Dixon's tail the whole day after Pelot was pushed back because of the incident where the yellow came out. But yeah, he looked like he was there all day. But I think
he was. The
Ganassi had
factor.
It in reserve based on what I saw from Ericsson. They just had it in reserve,
almost like they were toying with everybody.
Yeah, totally, totally toying with everybody.
Yep.
So, it was a good day for Pato. Everybody there was a lot of Pato fans in my family, number one, but I think at the raceway altogether.
I
was even waiting in line at
Arrow McLaren merch. A lot of Arrow McLaren merch. Yep.
Yeah. There were folks behind me talking in Spanish the whole time. So there's a draw, right? There's a draw he's bringing fans to the series, and that team looked really good. Pato looked really good. Rosenquist even looked good. And at the end of the day, just didn't have the speed.
Right. Rosenquist did look good, finished 4th. I think he needed that. He was in the top 10 most of the day. Double points going to help him get caught back up because he's had, a couple of unfortunate things happen this year. He had that pole at Texas, but couldn't capitalize on it. So it's good to see him get back in gear there. Like I said, I'm rooting for him only because I feel like I hate it when those seats start getting super hot like that. 11th place, JPM. Drive to 11th place from 30th. Amazing.
It is amazing. I agree.
Yeah. You like JPM, as do I. He's a great interview. But it wouldn't have surprised you to see him win this thing, right? In spite of that terrible starting spot.
Yeah, based on how strong the cars looked, I thought there was a real possibility he would drive through the field with his experience, but it took him all day to get to 11th. It wasn't like started in the back, and by lap, let's say 50, he was in the hunt. It took all day to get through.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I heard him say the car was terrible. So he mentioned the car was terrible. I believe it was an interview at the award show or something like that. But that just goes to his skill. If it was terrible, maybe it was terrible. You got to understand JPM's from the days before the aero screen, and I'm sure the handling has changed completely since then, as we've talked about and drivers had mentioned. And so maybe it's just a different feel that it was before. And so in his world, it's terrible because the weight distribution is not where it used to be, and therefore the car feels differently in the corners. But great job by JPM. And yes, I am a fan, and I tried to get some JPM gear, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it wasn't happening.
It's decided to spend the money elsewhere. So,
yeah.
But Arrow McLaren did a great job. They were where they needed to be to get the win, and they were just with Ganassi, power and handling. They just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Then comes the 5-team juggernaut known as Andretti Autosport. Alexander Rossi, who I believe had the fastest car out of that stable, the 2 weeks of Indy 500 activities. Michael even said something to that effect during qualifying broadcast. He had an unlucky draw. You don't believe that, but we'll give you a second to talk about that. I think he had an unlucky draw, really leading to that 20th starting place. Would I have been surprised to see Alex win? Yeah, a little. But what does surprise me is how far ahead of his teammates he finished. So first, I want you to talk about the qualifying draw, because you got a great point with this.
Yeah. So on the qualifying draw, I think if you have a solid team underneath you and you got a really fast car, that draw does matter. He didn't have a good draw, but he had a draw that was not great. But if you look at his draw, it was 24th overall. Alex Rossi did. And 25th was Marcus Ericsson. So
who started fifth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so to my point on this is, you should have done better in qualifying. You just didn't have the package to bring it together. You had the package, you just didn't have the right pieces to bring it all together. So I just think Team Andretti was off, and has been for several years now, and they're still trying to figure it out. They're not as off as other teams, which I know we talk about one other team that's been off, and we thought they were going to be on this year, but they haven't. So that's my point on the whole qualifying and the draw and where they started. They could have been up there. They just needed a little more. A better package, if you will, to get up there.
Yeah. So 5th place, Alexander Rossi, 20th for Devlin DeFrancesco. He made it to the finish, kept it clean. Car looks great on track. I don't really know what else to say there. 22nd place, Marco Andretti. I mean, certainly a disappointment for Marco, but again, these one-off things like this, JPM, Marco, Stefan Wilson, I don't know what the expectations are for Dreyer and Reinbold, which is like the exception, but I'll talk a little bit about that when we get there. I don't know what the expectation is there. Like, I know that Marco thinks he's going to just step into that car. They've been preparing it. They know he's coming. So it wasn't like a surprise deal like the Wilson deal.
Yeah.
But that team seemed to kind of be trying to Keystone Cop their way around, the paddock for 2 weeks. It didn't seem like that team was really that together, which just surprises me, right? So we've talked about it here. I think it's worth a mention again. That team, I feel like, is spread too thin. Right?
And no sense of urgency on the Marco side to get him up to speed quickly.
None.
And
nope.
Yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, he's here. We've got the car. The paint job's great. And we'll go out and give it a whirl on Sunday and let the other drivers figure out the setup. And then we'll just put it on Marco's car and we'll be good to go. That's my perception. I could be totally off, but
yeah, I agree.
never saw them at the top of the charts. I never saw them out there doing hundreds of laps to try to figure out the package for qualifying and then the race package. I think their focus was the race, but at the end of the day, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't see a ton of cars moving through the field like I was anticipating. So if you were in the mid pack and you didn't have a great car, you sat there all day long.
Yeah, mid pack, 22nd. Right, mid pack only by virtue of it's got the most cars.
Yeah,
in a race, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, I mean, that's he'd have been like third from the bottom in in any other race at 22nd like that. So
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, good for him for coming out. I think he beat his dad's start number in at the 500. So, good for him. But again, I don't understand these one-offs like this. They make no sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think
his dad went off to F1 and there was a split during that time too.
Right. So. Right. Yeah. So there's other things happening there.
Yeah. Other factors there.
Colton Herta, 30th place. Colton, of course, had that huge crash on Friday during Carb Day. Team rolled out the backup, which was actually the car that he won the Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. And that was likely going to be his Detroit Grand Prix car as well, because that's right. It's a road course car. Yeah. Here's something I want to mention and get your take, Tim. Coyne had to fix Malukas' car after he had a crash on Friday. It wasn't as bad as Colton's crash. I understand that, right? But Andretti Autosport, the perception of Andretti Autosport is they're a top tier, big organization, huge resources, and Coyne is not. Malukas' car came out, finished 16th. Herta had to park the car because it was undrivable. They could not adjust that car enough to get fast hands Colton Herta to drive that car to the end of that race, which was smart because you didn't want to risk, another accident, risk a head injury, a concussion or something, live to race another day. And I think that might be what they did. But I mean, Coyne did it. It wasn't as much damage, but Coyne also doesn't have the same kind of resources that Andretti does. Andretti couldn't put a car under Colton to get him to the end.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple things. I think that car was damaged beyond fixable, in my opinion. I just think the under tray was messed up. Obviously, it rolled.
It was, and that's why they went to the different car.
Yeah.
But even going to that second car, that car was like couldn't have been worse.
You know what? I won't blame the Andretti team. I'll blame the series and the schedule. And when I mean the schedule, there's only one 500-mile race. You only have one super speedway car. Days before, you had several 500-mile races. You had two speedway cars, not just a single car. Now the series is all about street courses and road courses. So you're going to have multiple of those cars, and you're going to have one super speedway car, which is just for Indy, and maybe for Texas. I don't know if you throw it out there for Texas, maybe you do, but that's what I think. If the series was with more oval and more 500 miles, you have two 500 milers, you'd have two of the super speedway cars, and it wouldn't be as big of an issue to just bring in the backup car. Think of the days that we would look at practice speeds, and you'd have your normal car, and then you'd have your T car.
Yeah.
In your T car, you would do laps in your T car to make sure that was okay, which was the backup for those that didn't watch back then. And so you had basically two cars that were ready to go at any time. You crack one, you pull the other one out, you make a few minor adjustments for the changes you just made, or you adjust them as you go. At the end of the day, you go, okay, this is a car we ended up with. Put the other super speedway car in the same trim in case something happens. We can just roll that one out and take it out of the garage. So I think that's what's going on here. And I kind of brushed over the whole, other car that crashed, and Malukas's, and getting that fixed. So
yeah,
but that's where I'm at with it. I think that's the
issue.
So
I thought about that this morning after doing these notes. I was thinking about it. I understand where you're going with it, and the teams don't do it because of cost. Right. Because there's been some lean years versus those years of the Indy 500 with T cars and all the money that was in the sport at the time, multiple chassis, multiple engine manufacturers, Marlboro money, Miller money, and all that stuff that was happening there. So Kmart money, but there's a lot of that goes on.
Money. It just goes on and on.
Exactly. Yeah. But the thing is, what I don't understand, to your point, is why couldn't one team, each team have a T car ready to go? Like, it's blank, right? And Colton Herta has this accident, this massive accident. Now you have a speedway car that is in the garage or in the transporter that, all right, Colton needs that car, right? He's the first guy out, right? He's the future of the team. So Colton gets the backup car, then they just have to wrap it. And then Colton can take a speedway ready car to the track, right? It's one car. And it's going to go to one of 5 guys if needed, right? At Penske, it's one car. It's going to go to one of 3 guys if needed. That's how I would solve that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If there's a suggestion box at Team Andretti, there it is. Write that sucker in, throw it in the box. And next year you have that other car that is just carbon fiber, right? It's just blank, ready to go. Someone wrecks their car, you pull that one out. Someone wrecks it and it's unrepairable, you pull that one out. And you even take it out to, I think you can, you take it out to get it race trim ready anyways. Put one of the drivers in it and say, take this one out and let's make sure it's the handling is where it needs to be on this, just in case someone needs it.
Yeah. Don't know what the rules are with that, but you're right. I mean, you pull it out for some laps in practice and just make sure that it, shake it down and make sure that everything's ready to go. Yeah. I mean, there could be like some engine considerations there. That could be a problem, but who knows? That's my suggestion. But I'm again not an insider. I'm a sort of.
I'll look at their webpage later to see if they've got a suggestion area. We can write that one in. I think it's good. I think 31st, it's really good.
Romain Grosjean turn 2 reached out and bit the rookie. I think he was on pace for a high top 10 or maybe a 15th. I think he would have exceeded the finishing places of Devlin or Marco or Colton. I don't think he would have been.
He was the leading
right there
Andretti driver at that time.
He was. Yep.
Yeah. And he just lost it like a lot of others did in turn 2. And I think it comes down to experience and the way that car handles in there and the way the wind was and what was happening. And if you didn't feel it for the lap before that it was getting a little twitchy and then all of a sudden it snaps on you, you're done. So that was a bummer, but not overly surprised with that. Are you?
Nope.
No. It's kind of,
I think he ran well.
We see him at Gateway when he was all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, he ran well. Yeah, he would have finished well, but
he was the only Andretti driver that was in the top 12.
Sage Karam is not a rookie at the 500. He wrecked in the same spot. Calum Ilott is, but he wrecked in that same spot. We saw a lot of guys have trouble in that spot. So, anything can happen. It's not down to driver error necessarily. Sometimes it's just what the track gives you.
Yeah, Rinus caught it in that spot.
Rinus,
and Jimmie caught it in that spot. His was different.
And Rinus had a great car.
Yeah, great car for 30 some laps or whatever it was. Jeez.
Speaking of, guess who's next? Ed Carpenter Racing, 6th place.
There we go.
Connor Daly.
How does that happen? We don't even plan that.
Great job. Great segue. The 6th place, Connor Daly, crazy loud cheer from the crowd when Connor took the lead from Dixon on lap 81. Great finish for Connor, who struggled in qualifying compared to his teammates. And he won social media in the Indy activities in May here. Did you see that Alexander Rossi fessed up to being the culprit?
I did see that. Yes.
Okay. So for those that didn't, Alexander Rossi bought 1.75 million Orbeez beads, spent like $500. That eventually made their way into Connor's blow up hot tub that absorbed all the water.
Did you do the math to see what he spent on it based on the screenshot?
No, our friend James Hinchcliffe did the math for us. Or no, I'm sorry, it was in Rossi's tweet. It was in
was it? I must have missed that.
So 6th place for Connor. Great finish for him and tremendous rebound for what he was 3rd fiddle by far behind Rinus and his boss and but great finish because Carpenter, who started 4th, finished 19th. He complained that the car was sensitive to the wind, which again, kind of a one-off effort, right? He's not driving every week. Understeer in turn 4, and then maybe they went a little too far with the adjustments, causing understeer in turn 2. He chased the handling, didn't wad it up. I mean, he's a smart veteran, so he knew what to do there.
So I was just going to say, he felt it. He was like, this is not good. And others that were rookies or second, third year didn't have that same feeling or thought that is the way it's supposed to feel. And Carpenter, he was up there, like you said, he faded at the end because of handling. That just goes to wind, grease, sun, hot track temperature, and trying to chase the handling.
33rd, Rinus Veekay. Bill from Shelby was pulling for Rinus Veekay.
It was his winner.
Yeah, started third, fell victim to turn 2. I don't know. I don't know that Rinus really could have what he had for the Ganassi cars, all of them. I don't know what he would have had there, but I think he would have definitely been there. I think he would have been very, very strong against the Aero McLarens, right? Against Award and against Rosenquist. It's just, it is a shame that he didn't get that to, to that point to see what was
almost
happening.
The best looking car out there too. It was a great livery, super bright. You could see him anywhere he was.
You could see that one. You couldn't see the one from the Indy GP. The one at the Indy GP was not as good as the one that.
You mentioned that. Oh, that was right. So for Ed Carpenter Racing, to me, this all seems typical for them on race day, like where they finish, and qualifying was great. That's what they do. They come in, they qualify really well. And then the race, I just feel they don't put it together to get on the podium or to get on the step, on the first step. And that's what happened today. And VK, you never know what could have been. He put it in the wall very early, and he was the fastest out of those. So you figure Daly in 6, VK would have been up there, but maybe next year for them.
Meyer Shank Racing, whole team beset with issues stemming from poor qualifying. 27th place for Elio, 16th for Pagenaud. Remember though, their engineering expertise comes from Andretti Autosport, so it's kind of on trend with the Andretti cars, right? But as far as the finish, they exceeded the Andretti cars, except for Rossi. Castroneves finishes 7th. Pagenaud finishes 8th. Their day was spent coming through the field, and they were on their heels the entire race. To finish 7th and 8th, given how difficult the circumstances were and how difficult the track was, good job by them. Elio had that vent hose flapping, but I mean, I think that was the most excitement we heard out of Elio in his race during that broadcast. Was his air vent hose was loose.
Yeah. And they did awesome coming through the field. And it wasn't like they were charging. It was just by the end of the race, they were in the top 10. And I'm sure they were happy coming off last year with a win, and this year, where they're at and getting their engineering help from Andretti, as you mentioned, and that team not performing as well as they have in the past. It's a great result. And I'm sure they made a few bucks at Indy this year.
Yeah. Dreyer Reinbold Racing. Santucci. What else can you say about Santino Ferrucci? Results are there, plain and simple. What's not is why he isn't in a full-time ride, right? We can speculate. We have speculated, but I won't right now. For me personally, I want to like him, but sometimes on air and in the interviews, I can't warm up to that. So, if you're a Fortune 100 or Fortune 200 company and you're looking to invest money in an IndyCar team, $6 million a year, $5 million a year, I'm not 100% certain that that's the guy I want wearing my logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was good all day. He was
good all day. Hey, dude, there's no taking away from him. He's fast. He knows his way around Indianapolis. He made a splash with that dark tint, again, that dark tinted aero screen, and his rationale for doing it was solid. I wouldn't be surprised you start seeing some other people start doing that too. Sage Karam finished 23rd. He was the final victim of that turn 2 wall after the restart after the red flag. But Dreyer Reinbold goes against what we were saying earlier about the one-offs, right? And they are a one-off team, but it wasn't something that just came together, in the last few weeks or in the last couple of months. We knew that they were coming. We knew that they were coming since last year. So those cars were very well prepared. Dennis Reinbold does a great job of bringing cars to Indianapolis. I'd love to see this team back full time. And, I'd love to see them, take it to these bigger teams.
Mm-hmm.
Arrow McLaren, I think, has solidified itself as the number 2 Chevy team behind Penske, right? But I think it would be really fun to see somebody like Dreyer Reinbold be that third, kind of that sort of, I don't know, that kind of that team that comes in there and shakes everything up in a Chevy, kind of like Coyne does on the Honda side, right? You expect Ganassi to be good, you expect Andretti to be good, and then all of a sudden Coyne's smacking both of them, right?
Yeah.
I would love to see Dreyer Reinbold Racing come in and do something like that on the Chevy side.
And you'd think the next team on the list would be that team and would hold that position pretty firmly. But I think Dreyer Reinbold could come in and take that away easily. Yeah. And be that team.
Yep. Because the team that's not is another Chevy team here is Foyt. Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of the finish for this team, right? I mean, J.R. Hildebrand, 12th, Cal Kirkwood, 17th, Dalton Kellett, 27th. Kellett seemed to have some issues early and, had one more stop than the leaders with 7 stops. Hildebrand is good here. We knew he was going to be. Kirkwood is going to be a force next year when he goes to Andretti, I feel, right? If Andretti gets themselves together. Yeah. Kirkwood's a talented young driver, and he's proven that everywhere. So, where I felt in the beginning like Foyt was starting to put things together, I even jokingly said that they might have gotten themselves, their hands on somebody else's setup books. But, this Indy wasn't great for Foyt Racing. I think 12th was a win for them. I think it was a great expectation on a one-off, right? Again, I continue to be.
I think so.
But again, it is a one-off team, but we knew he was coming. We knew that team was being prepared, and it wasn't just in the last few weeks.
And Kirkwood keeping it clean all race. Yep. That's good for a rookie with those conditions. And I'd like to see him finish a little further up than 17th, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't meant to be. But Hildebrand's car, it looked good out there. You could see that one all day long too. So that was great livery and great sponsorship that they have, and a great cause that they were working for there. So I know their goal is to put AJ in victory lane again before he doesn't come to the events anymore. So hopefully they'll get there one day, but it's typical. That's Foyt. It's Foyt Racing. And we'll see if they get there.
Yep. So we've talked
I am surprised. I am surprised we're talking about Foyt before Penske. Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
We're talking about 7 teams before we get to Penske. Right. So, and I'm pretty confident in saying this has got to be the greatest disappointment for them. Right. I think the greatest disappointment of their season so far, because it's been filled with promise. I would suspect that, this was the greatest disappointment of the Indy 500. I mean, in terms of the expectations, what we thought was going in there. Tim, do you agree?
Mm-hmm. I would agree. It's not their worst Indy 500, but it is definitely one of the.
That's for sure.
It is. It's definitely probably as you mentioned, the greatest disappointment of any team at the Indy 500 is this one here.
Yeah. What surprises me is it's kind of 2 years in a row, right? Where the team seems to struggle at the Speedway, and we know what kind of emphasis Roger Penske puts on putting on a good show at the Speedway. Will almost got bumped out of this thing last year. Can you imagine what a disaster that would have been for Verizon and Penske having to explain that?
Yeah, totally.
So, this is arguably the one race that the guy with his name on the building puts the most emphasis on. And
this is the only team ever that's qualified all 3 cars on the front row.
Right. Ever. Exactly right.
They put it, and that goes to your point. They put a ton of effort into the Indy 500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
13th for Newgarden, 15th for Power, who Power had a nice surge in the very beginning, but that was very short-lived, and then fell back. McLaughlin, wrecked in turn 3. It seemed to go on and on. I mean, he finished up in turn 4. It was a scary crash. He he was okay. I thought he said something on Twitter. I looked for it earlier where he said it was, bruised ego or bruised pride more than anything. He was fine. But I just kind of, I'm puzzled by this team and the product that they put on the track at the 500.
Do you want to speculate what's going on there? Or I don't know what's happened. I have no idea.
Yeah. Again, depth of resources that we talk about at Andretti. I don't think anybody has better resources than Penske. There's just something missing there with that setup that they're just not getting the most out of the car.
Now, they've been great up until up until this weekend, which is the biggest weekend for IndyCar and IndyCar fans. So yeah, you just missed the setup, but I don't know. I'm going to go back on what I said. There's not enough 500 milers to have, consistent practice on that type of setup. And you got 2 weeks to make it happen. If you're off, it seems like you're chasing it the entire time. And, the race isn't the time to make changes in these cars. It doesn't seem to really drive up. Although
you have more practice time at Indianapolis than you do anywhere else. So even though you don't have it leading up to it, or you don't have any other 500-mile races, I think means nothing, because you've got more practice time and more time on track than you do anywhere else the entire season.
They had April, they had the 2 days, and then they came out, and those conditions are very different than what you saw on race day.
Still got to get the car on track. You know what? But everybody else is in the same conditions. So you still have a way to gauge your own performance against what everybody else is doing on track.
Yeah. Into Power's drive, as you mentioned, he moved up a little bit and then he fell back. Yep. But they came back to 15th. So they made adjustments and fixed it a little bit, but it wasn't, up in front battling for any type of podium or top 10 or anything like that. They're all out of the top 10. Yeah. Just a bad weekend.
Continuing along that theme, Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. Sometimes I just want to move on here, right? I mean, it's the same commentary.
You're like, seriously?
Yeah, seriously. This can't be what this team was expecting going into this 500, given how strong they were last year. I really believed in my heart, and I know you think it's crazy, and I truly do believe it, that they were going to be tough at Indy, and that Graham would be out for revenge after last year, that the race was kind of stolen from him. I don't know if he was in, he would have been in play for the win last year, whether he won it or not, don't know, but he would have been in play for that had it not been for that goofy pit stop that took him out. Yeah. The team was flat. They were flat the entire 2 weeks leading up to the 500. I think they were flat and conservative. You didn't see much coming out of this team. And
I think the best story around this team is your fan experience. So tell the fans about your fan experience with this team.
Oh, I wore the Jack Harvey, jersey, the one that I debuted here, a couple months ago. And I was walking through the pagoda area, right, where all the snacks and everything are, kind of the snack bar by the pagoda. And somebody stopped me and said, "Hey, do you work for Hy-Vee?" And I said, No, I'm just a fan of Jack and, fan of the sport. I plugged the podcast, of course. I should have. And this guy was actually a Hy-Vee employee, right? Yeah. So I should have, first of all, thanked them for everything that they do in support of the series, because they've been an amazing supporter of the series since coming in. And we're going to see that on full display in Iowa. And we've seen it already, how well they've done to support the series. So it is kind of a bummer. But yeah, I mean, that was, maybe that's the best story
of the weekend around this team is, getting support from the employees that are there, and they're there supporting their drivers and being out there. So
some random fan walking around with a Hy-Vee jersey, a Jack Harvey Hy-Vee jersey. Yeah,
that was the only one I saw.
Without a doubt, there was no Jack, just like there was no Huski Chocolate Marcus Ericsson stuff. There's no Jack Harvey stuff either. There's no Christian Lundgaard stuff either. The only one you get there is Graham and that United rental.
Yeah. Right? Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about that.
Me neither. I'm over
it. Let's see what they do in Detroit.
I don't think anything. They don't seem to have anything going as far as their street course package.
Yeah, you think they're
maybe
strongest on road courses?
Maybe something at Road America, maybe something at Mid Ohio. We'll see, but
yeah, it'll be interesting to see Iowa, how they come out at Iowa and what they can do.
You'd hope that they do something there.
Yeah, you would hope so.
Right? You'd hope that they do something there. So, 16th place, David Malukas for Dale Coyne Racing. I mentioned earlier, I think he was robbed. He was the rookie that actually took the checkered flag, lost to the rookie who crashed and finished 28th. I know that there was the criteria that IndyCar, put mayonnaise and mustard on and, made us a big tall bologna sandwich on that. And, I think there's no other way for me to describe it. Right. JJ gets IndyCar rookie of the year, or Indy 500 rookie of the year, and Malukas gets a, thank you for coming. And I know you gave us the criteria already, but
yeah, totally did. I was shocked when I saw the rookie of the year. I guess I shouldn't have been, but I was. It was last night. It came through, and I'm like, and there was a lot of outrage on Twitter. A lot of outrage
because he didn't finish.
I know
and I think we finally gotten to the point of the Jimmie Johnson experience where it's like, okay, we're over it, right? Jimmie, you can't say, well, we're still getting, we're still coming to grips, we're still learning, no, dude, we don't learn at this level, right? Stingray Robb, Matt Brabham and Indy Lights, those guys are learning. And that's the level that they're learning at, right? Yeah. Jackson Lee, Kevin Lee's son in USF 2000, he's at the learning level. Okay, not Jimmie Johnson, 7-time NASCAR champion, steps into a top team, right? Number one team in IndyCar right now.
Yeah.
And we're learning.
I know. It was one mistake, but
I give him all the credit in the world for doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
I say it every year, and I mean it sincerely. But my cup of that is worn low. So Takuma Sato finishes 25th. He was fast too going into this race. I didn't really see much of him in this race. I hate the two purple cars because I didn't know if it was Takuma or if it was Ed Carpenter, but he was fast going into this race, and I just don't know what happened to him here. Finished 25th. Kind of a bummer. Not where I would have expected him to finish.
I was expecting him to charge hard to the front and stay up there and be up there for a little while, but maybe take a little too much risk and then, end up like he does. It's either all in or all out.
Yep.
But to fall to 25th and finish there, that's a surprise to me too.
Yeah, total bummer.
Just a non-factor.
Yep. Dragon Speed, Cusick Racing, Justin Wilson, finishes 26th. Good for this team. This deal came together way late. And it was to come together so we could have 33 starters at this thing. They made it. They were chasing it the entire time. They were way behind. Teams, as you know, they prepare for this race today. So there's no other way to say that. So
it was Stefan.
Oh, I keep saying that. I'm sorry. I even wrote it, Justin Wilson. I'm so sorry. Stefan Wilson. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But Dreyer, you compare that to like a Dreyer Reinbold, they knew what their program was last year. But Hunko's Hollinger, 32 for Calum Ilott. He was the other boom in that turn two. Shame for this team. He's got a mangled hand. I saw on Twitter. Doesn't look good. I hope he'll be ready for Detroit, which is tough. It's bumpy. You and I've been out there on a bicycle, so you can imagine what it's like going 180 miles an hour on that track with a broken hand. So these guys, he's going to be in for it. So hopefully he's able to suit up. If not, we'll see who they decide to put in that car. Maybe Santucci.
Maybe. Did you hear the other rumor on that?
No.
RHR?
Give me a break.
Well, that's the other rumor, that he might be in it, because wasn't he doing some consultation for them and being around? So that could, and we saw him. Didn't you saw him at Indy?
We did. Saw him in his own golf cart, had his brand on the side.
Yeah. I was rooting for the team. I almost bought their merch.
Golf cart will travel.
Yeah, he was there. So
Ilott and Juncos Hollinger has their own merch, but the guy who won the 500 doesn't.
Yeah, bizarre.
Yep. Can I give a real quick rundown of the stories we were watching?
Yeah, I think I love this. This is good because this is what we were watching, right?
Yeah. So Dixon, can he shake the monkey off his back and get this victory? Nope. And it has to be the saddest finish I think we can imagine for Scott Dixon. He didn't get caught up in anything. Strategy was good. Car was awesome. Just too fast entering the pit. Game over. Not enough time to come back through like his teammate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chevy versus Honda, race trim, fuel mileage. Honda was fast, but I'd call it a push on the mileage front, right? You really couldn't tell because they were they were staggered out pretty good. So it didn't really look like anyone was getting better mileage over the others. Are the RLL car, are the Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan cars that bad? When they come to the field? Yep. And kind of, right? Graham, as is often the case, makes his way through the field. Jack was halted by strategy, necessitating a late stop. Lundgaard was smart, made it to the checkered. I mean, that's the highlight. Meyer Shank coming through the field. Yep, great job by both Castroneves and Pagenaud. I got a question for you though, Tim. Does Elio come back full time next year, or does he come for an Indy 500 only next year?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think he comes back for an entire season, one more season. I think he's a huge asset. He can provide insight on every single track. And this is his, it'll be his time. It's his first year back full time. And I think one more year in the saddle will do that team well and help them sort of move forward. So my bet is he's going to be around for a full season. Yours?
I think he'll be around full time next year in sports cars. And I think he'll do the Indy 500. And I think Shank will put somebody in that car.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good possibility, right? You get a lot of intel from the other one in that Pagenaud that's in that seat. So maybe you don't need both of them. Maybe it was just you won the 500. We're going to put you in for the entire season and see how things go. And maybe it's off to sports car, as you mentioned, because they have a great sports car program.
Great sports car program with the Acura. Yep. Penske, in a word, forgettable. Right? I think they'd put it behind them and go to the next track that Roger Penske owns in Detroit.
Move on.
Yep. Takuma, will he get number 3? I think it's possible, is what we said. Possible, but wasn't meant to be. ECR, will they avoid mistakes and be there at the end? Kind of mixed here, right? Rinus got caught out by the turn 2 issues. Ed was chasing the handling, and Connor did what Connor does, right? He's good at Indy, put on a good show, had a great finish to show for it. So good for him.
Yeah.
Very mixed. We said sounds simple, but being able to slow the car down for pit entrance. We didn't see any of those issues this year, right? Except for Dixon, but that was an unforced error. That wasn't teams playing games with the calipers or, that spring or whatever they were doing last year. That wasn't there. We were on site. Yes, we were. We had a great time.
Yeah, that did happen, and we were all there, and we had an awesome time. It was really good.
Yeah, it was a great time.
And so were a lot of other people. We were not just the only ones there. It was amazing.
So full of people. Before we go, F1 at Monaco, congrats to Sergio Perez on his win. Biggest of his career, no doubt. He's 15 points out of the lead. He's 15 points behind Max, who leads, and only 6 points behind Charles Leclerc. And it was announced this morning that Perez signed a 2-year extension with Red Bull, which made me let out a very loud, oh, wow, when I read that, when I saw that line. I was the only one home. I was by myself drinking coffee on the couch. Oh, wow, when I saw that. At some point, hopefully we'll get to some more Formula One dialogue, because I have a lot I want to talk about, but we're just not able to get there. Month of May is very busy for IndyCar, and we're an IndyCar Forward show.
Yep, that is true.
Yep. Tim, that's all I have. What do you got?
Well, we're off to Detroit.
Yes,
right, Dan?
Yes, we are.
And I think we're going there as insiders. You got anything to add to that or no?
Yes, we are. So, thanking the people of the Detroit Grand Prix. They did approve us, the Turn 4 podcast, for media credentials.
Yeah.
So Tim and I will be taking advantage of that, and we will be inside the ropes as it were, and taking our humble little show here to the next level. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I know you are as well. That's going to be a lot of fun. And, I have to try not to be fanboy, because I can be fanboy. So I'm just going to apologize in advance to Marshall Pruitt, Nathan Brown, Kevin Lee, because those are the three guys I'm going to be fanboy the minute I see him. Hinch, who, we met him, and I'm going to try not to be fanboy with him, because, I met, the Hinch and Rossi producer on Georgetown in Indianapolis on Saturday. And I damn near knocked him to the ground, because in my excitement of recognizing
that would be the other Tim he met.
Yeah, Tim Durham. So but yeah, so I have to try not to be fanboy. I have to try to be a professional.
We all have jobs to do over there, so that's what we're gonna do.
Yep,
do our jobs.
That's what we're gonna do. So we're excited. So look for our Instagram, right, Timmy? We'll put a lot of things on our Instagram
as well as Twitter. We'll be on that and posting stuff, and we'll do more and more posting. What are you looking at me like that?
Are we finally ready to do a TikTok?
I don't know. I've mentioned that, and
you and the social media department, I think, should decide. It shouldn't be up to me at all. I don't care.
I think I mentioned it early in one of our shows that we should be on TikTok, and I think that got edited out or something.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think you give me too much credit. Well, that's it.
The only thing we didn't mention today was where the drivers stand in their championship, but we'll get to that next week after Detroit.
Go ahead. Give us the top 3 or 4 if you've got them in front of you.
Yeah, sure. So the top one is now Marcus Ericsson, believe it or not, with 226 points.
Believe it, the double points.
Yeah. Pato follows behind with 213. Pillow is in 4th with 212, and then your 4th and 5th are 2 Team Penske's drivers with Will Power at 202 and Joseph Newgarden at 174. So
where's Will?
That's where
for 6.
Will is 4th.
So he was leading this thing going into the 500. He was leading the championship going into the 500.
He's down to 4th, and he's only 24 points behind Marcus Ericsson. So I guess the question: can Marcus hold on to the championship lead?
It's possible.
It's possible. Anything's possible. And then you get 6th. You're over at Scott Dixon, who could have had a huge payday on points and everything else.
He'd be leading by far. Yeah.
Yes, he would have been. But it tightened that you got 4 drivers within 24 points going to Detroit.
Yep.
So that'll prove interesting for the rest of the season here. And that's 2 Chip Ganassi, 1 Arrow McLaren, and 1 Penske in the top 4.
Yeah. Thanks for doing that. I didn't look it up. I didn't think about it. So, hey, look for stuff coming out of Detroit on our Instagram, our Twitter. Maybe Timmy will pull it together a TikTok by then. Nonetheless, we'll be there. We'll have a good time with it. IMSA, which we love and we know our listeners love, we'll be there for that. And then, of course, the Grand Prix. I think it's going to be hot in Detroit. It always, it is now hot. It's 90 degrees today. So, I think it's too early for the forecast, especially in the Midwest, but we'll see. I'm sure it's going to be hot, maybe a little rain, maybe, you never know. But I think it's going to be great. And I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, inside the ropes, we'll have a lot of fun with that. And, hopefully we'll bring you some new content. We'll bring you some interesting content. So as always, thanks for listening. We appreciate you being here. Appreciate everything you do for us. So thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.